In the autumn of 1399, a seismic event shook the foundations of English monarchy. Within the hallowed halls of Westminster, King Richard II was dramatically deposed. This was not merely a change of ruler, it was a shattering blow to the very concept of divine right. For centuries, the king's authority had been seen as God-given, immutable. But on September 30th, 1399, that sacred bond was broken, establishing a dangerous and terrifying precedent. Henry Bolingbroke, Duke of Lancaster, seized the throne, despite a demonstrably weaker claim by primogeniture. His usurpation, born of ambition and opportunity, would cast a long, dark shadow over the coming decades. It was the original sin, the fundamental instability from which future dynastic conflicts would inevitably spring. The crown, once inviolable, had become a prize to be taken. Richard II's reign began with the promise of a courageous young king, bravely facing the peasants' revolt. Yet over time, a profound transformation occurred, turning him into a figure of increasing tyranny and paranoia. He began to govern through a circle of favorites, alienating the powerful magnates who formed the backbone of the realm. This growing discontent culminated in the Lords Appellant crisis of 1387 and 1388. A coalition of powerful nobles, including his uncle Thomas of Woodstock, confronted the king. They temporarily seized control of the government, severely limiting Richard's royal power and executing his closest advisors. Richard, however, was not one to forget such an affront. He bided his time, meticulously planning his revenge. From 1397 to 1399, he systematically dismantled the appellants, orchestrating their murder, exile, or imprisonment. This period marked a terrifying escalation of royal absolutism. His most fateful act was the exile of Henry Bolingbroke, son of John of Gaunt, and the subsequent seizure of the vast Lancastrian inheritance. This act of blatant injustice pushed Bolingbroke to the brink. Henry returned to England in 1399, initially claiming only his rightful inheritance. But the widespread dissatisfaction with Richard's rule, coupled with the king's absence in Ireland, allowed Henry's ambition to swell. His claim quickly expanded from property to the crown itself. Richard's deposition, orchestrated by Parliament, cemented the dangerous principle that a king could be removed for misgovernment. Henry IV, the first Lancastrian king, spent his reign battling rebellions and the lingering stain of his usurpation. His son, Henry V, inherited this precarious legacy, a dynasty founded on questionable legitimacy and burdened by financial woes. Henry V understood that to secure his family's rule, he needed a grand strategy. He chose foreign conquest as his path to legitimacy, a bold and dangerous gamble. By uniting England against a common enemy, he hoped to solidify his position and silence internal dissent. The renewal of the 100 Years' War was not merely a continuation of old conflicts, it was a sophisticated act of statecraft. In 1415, Henry launched his audacious Harfleur campaign, a brutal siege followed by a defiant march towards Calais. His army, depleted and disease-ridden, faced overwhelming odds. What followed was one of the most iconic battles in English history, Agincourt. On October 25, 1415, Henry's smaller, disciplined force achieved a decisive victory against a vastly superior French army. The sheer scale of French casualties was unprecedented, a testament to English archers and Henry's tactical genius. Agincourt not only validated Lancastrian rule, but also instilled a profound sense of national pride. The triumph continued, culminating in the Treaty of Troyes in 1420. This extraordinary agreement recognized Henry V as the heir to the French throne and regent of France. His marriage to Catherine of Valois, the French king's daughter, seemed to secure a dual monarchy, uniting two great kingdoms under one crown. Yet, even in this moment of unparalleled glory, the seeds of destruction were sown. The costs of maintaining such an empire were unsustainable, draining England's resources and manpower. Henry VI's early death in 1422, at the height of his power, left a child king to inherit an impossible dream. With Henry VI's premature death, his infant son, Henry VI, inherited the crowns of both England and France. Initially, English dominance in France seemed assured, maintained by capable regents. But this fragile control was soon to be challenged by an extraordinary figure. In 1429, a young peasant girl named Joan of Arc emerged from obscurity, claiming divine guidance. Her arrival at Orléans, a city under siege, marked a turning point. She inspired the French forces to lift the siege and achieve a stunning victory at Patay. Joan's emergence was more than a military success. It was a psychological revolution. She challenged the very legitimacy of English rule in France, galvanizing French national identity. Her eventual capture and martyrdom only served to deepen her legend, inspiring fierce resistance against the English occupiers. The tide of the war irrevocably turned against England. In 1435, the crucial Burgundian alliance, a cornerstone of English strategy, was lost. The Treaty of Arras saw Burgundy reconcile with the French king, leaving England isolated and facing a united French opposition. Meanwhile, Henry II's government in England proved increasingly weak and ineffective. The king himself, a gentle and pious man, lacked the leadership and military prowess required to govern a war-torn realm. His piety often overshadowed practical governance, leading to factionalism and mismanagement. The final blow came in 1453 with the loss of Gascony, England's last remaining continental possession outside of Calais. The fall of Bordeaux marked the definitive end of the Hundred Years' War. This devastating defeat had a profound psychological impact on English identity, shattering the illusion of empire and fueling internal discontent. The loss of France plunged England into a deep crisis, exacerbated by the king's own fragility. In 1453, Henry VI suffered a complete mental breakdown, rendering him catatonic and unresponsive. This exposed the utter failure of his government and created a dangerous power vacuum. Into this void stepped Richard, Duke of York, a man of immense wealth and influence. York possessed a superior genealogical claim to the throne, tracing his lineage through the Mortimer line, which many considered more legitimate than the Lancastrian succession. He also demonstrated practical skills in governance and commanded significant resources. York was appointed protector of the realm during Henry's illness, a position he used to implement reforms. His first protectorate, from 1453 to 1454, saw him attempt to restore order and justice. However, his efforts inevitably threatened the entrenched Lancastrian patronage network, creating powerful enemies. When Henry VI miraculously recovered his senses in late 1454, he immediately dismissed York from his protectorate. The king, heavily influenced by his wife, Margaret of Anjou, and the Duke of Somerset, reversed many of York's reforms. This act of political retribution pushed the realm closer to the precipice. The stage was now set for open conflict. The breakdown of constitutional government was complete, with Parliament unable to resolve the deep-seated dynastic and political divisions. Noble factions began to raise private armies, preparing for the inevitable clash. The Wars of the Roses were about to begin. The deposition of Richard II in 1399 created a wound in the body politic of England that never truly healed. Parliamentary institutions, though growing in influence, proved utterly inadequate to resolve the fundamental crisis of Lancastrian legitimacy. The crown, once a symbol of divine order, had become a contested prize. Beyond the dynastic struggle, profound social changes were at play. The Black Death had reshaped society, creating new wealth and a more assertive gentry. This new class, alongside the great magnates, now commanded private armies, loyal to their lords rather than solely to the king. The loss of French territories, once a unifying external focus, removed a crucial outlet for English martial energy. With no foreign wars to fight, the ambitions and grievances of the nobility turned inward, intensifying internal conflict. The vast resources once poured into France now fueled domestic rivalries. The period from 1381 to 1455 represents a slow, agonizing unraveling of the medieval English monarchy. It was a time when the very nature of kingship was questioned, when the bonds of loyalty frayed, and when the rule of law gave way to the rule of the sword. This tumultuous era, born from usurpation and culminating in a mad king, set the stage for the brutal Wars of the Roses. It was a fundamental crisis of royal authority, a testament to how a single act of defiance could echo through generations, ultimately tearing a kingdom apart.